everyone, it's Hailey, and today I'm going to be talking about some really unique books. Done this video once before, but it's definitely like I always seem to have videos that I want to do more than just once, but then I always forget about them when I'm trying to think of what to film. So I can do this again soon if you guys would like to see it, but I just wanted to share with you guys some books that are really different, and a lot of these are definitely books that I talk about quite frequently because they stand apart from the other books that I've read. Reading so much, some books can start to seem the same, and that's not always a bad thing. Like, there are formulas that work, but I feel like these books do something a little bit different, and that is a big part of the reason why I love them so much. So these are going to be books that I think kind of stand apart from the other books that I've read because of a special little something that they do. So without further ado, let's just get into it. So I just wanted to take a second to thank the sponsor for today's video, Birch Living. So I have been using my Birch mattress for a little bit now, and I have been loving it. I love my sleep. Sleep is so important for your overall health. It just regulates things. Like, sleep is very vital, and this mattress makes me feel so well rested. I am not a good sleeper, and honestly, it's very comfortable for me. I'm a stomach sleeper, so that doesn't help. Sometimes it's hard for me to find a mattress that works for me, but I find that this one is perfect. The other amazing thing about this mattress is that it is organic and non-toxic and made of just 4 materials. So it has New Zealand wool, it is also made in America, and features organic latex and American springs and organic cotton, and all of it combines to make the best mattress. Each mattress also comes with 2 pillows, and the pillows are really cool because they're actually made out of recycled plastic bottles. So it's amazing and really good for the environment. Like, I love the fact that I can feel good about what I'm sleeping on. The buying process online is super easy, and you also get a 100-night guarantee, so you can try it for 100 nights, and if you don't like it, then you can return it. And you also get a 10-year warranty, which is absolutely amazing. But the best part of it all is that it delivers right to your door. It comes all rolled up in a box, and we set it up. It's really easy to set up. You just have it there and it just rolls out. It just is like nothing, and then boom, a mattress. And then you let it sit for like 1 to 2 hours to let it like expand again, and you have your perfect mattress. So it is just such an easy process of mattress buying. I really love my Birch mattress, and I think that you guys would love it too. It's like investing in yourself and a good night's sleep. So if you guys were interested in getting a new bed, I will have a link down below for you to check out Birch. Using that link, you can get up to $200 off and 2 free pillows. So it's amazing. Highly recommend you check it out, and thank you so much once again to Birch for sponsoring today's video. The first book that I wanted to talk about today is They Went Left by Maika Hesse. So I read a lot of historical fiction, and particularly I read a lot of World War II historical fiction because there's a lot of that, 1, and 2, I tend to be really interested in it. I find it to be a really fascinating time period. So some of my favorite books are World War II historical fictions, but they do kind of tend to follow the same sort of thing. Now, this one is super different and unlike any other World War II historical fiction I've read before because it actually is set after the war. So this follows a character who has recently been liberated from a concentration camp, and she's trying to find her family again. Everyone she knows has been murdered, and she has been through such a horrifying and traumatic experience and is trying to piece together her life, which, like, how do you even do that? Like, it's a very emotional and difficult read because you know this character, and all the characters that she comes to meet along the way, they have all been through so much and such a horrific experience. And she's just trying to find her brother again because the rest of her family, when they were sent to the concentration camps, they were all sent towards the gas chambers. Her and her brother were the only ones who were sent away from them and were able to survive the camps. So she is going through refugee camps, and it teaches you a lot about the experiences of these people after liberation. You get to see all of the organizations that tried to help them find each other, all the people who couldn't find each other. Like, it just was such a harrowing experience reading this book, but I felt like I learned a lot at the same time, and I also got a good story to it as well. But it really was hard to read because, you know, there are so many people who went through that exact experience, and it absolutely tugged on my heartstrings. But for sure, if you love historical fiction, and even if you don't, this is very different and a really great read. Next up is When You Were Everything by Ashley Woodfolk. So this is a YA contemporary, and the reason that I'm including it on this list is because it deals with something that I think should be written about a lot more. I think it's something that is very important, and that is friendship breakups. So that is something that I think everyone is going to experience at least once in their life, and losing a friend, even though like it can be for the better, it's really hard. It's just as hard, if not sometimes harder, than a romantic breakup. It's really difficult to lose any relationship, and this book does a fantastic job of dealing with that, of having these characters who used to be best friends. They pretty much grew up together, but then they have grown apart, and you see them having their lives on their own and having this conflict, but also it shows you like it's okay to grow away from people. It doesn't have to be a fight. It doesn't have to be a big conflict. You can grow away from people. You can move on. You can realize that a relationship is toxic, and that is totally fine. And especially for young adults, that is something that you are going to experience time and time again. Like high school, you know, you're growing up. It's such a formative period in your life that you can absolutely grow apart from a lot of people, and there is nothing wrong with that. So personally, I loved how this book represented that. I loved how it was a platonic relationship at the forefront of the story, and the loss of a platonic relationship at the forefront of the story. It's kind of grieving that loss, and it just absolutely touches on this topic that I think needs to be written about a lot more, and it does it in a fantastic and very effective way. So definitely a book that I would highly recommend, and very different for a YA contemporary. Next up is Opposite of Always by Justin A. Reynolds. So of course, when I'm talking about unique reads, I'm sure you knew I was going to mention Justin A. Reynolds because he writes contemporaries with a twist, and it's just contemporary but different. So I've only read one of his books when I'm filming this video. Maybe I will have read his other book by the time you're seeing it, but both of them are contemporary but with that little bit of twist there. So in Opposite of Always, this one, you have Jack and Kate, and Jack and Kate meet at a party, they fall in love, and then Kate ends up dying, and her death sends Jack through this time loop where he keeps on going back to the beginning, and he's trying to save her. He's trying to figure out if there is a way that Kate can survive. So it's a really heartbreaking story, and you see him going through this over and over and over again, and in such a complicated situation. But I loved the fact that it was a romance story, but a little bit different, because you're seeing it from the beginning, you're seeing the end of it as well, and then you're seeing him desperately trying to save things. Justin A. Reynolds also does a fantastic job of writing characters. These characters were so engaging. I loved the relationship and the chemistry. The writing of it just completely sucked me in and hooked me from the very beginning. It read so quickly, and I just loved how different it was. It felt like a new, unique, and fresh take on contemporary and romance in particular, which just filled me with so much joy. Like, Jack had such a support system around him. His family was really prevalent. His friends were really prevalent. Also, obviously, his relationship with Kate. So this book just had a little bit of everything, so I really loved it. Next up is The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. So I feel like you may have seen this book around because I feel like it was decently hyped up, but now I haven't really seen so much of it. But it is a YA contemporary mystery. So it's very different than what I would usually gravitate towards. But I actually was thoroughly surprised with how much I enjoyed it, and I had never really read anything like it before. So you follow a main character who, she's pretty poor. Her mother has left her with basically nothing. Like, she's just trying to survive from day to day. Now, she ends up actually inheriting the fortune of a billionaire who has recently died, but the catch to that is she has to live in his estate with his family, who has just, like, obviously recently been snubbed, and they're like, who is this girl? So she has to live with his 4 grandsons, the rest of the family, and there's this huge question throughout the entire thing of, like, why?
why was this money left to her? Why wasn't it left to the grandsons at the very least? Why? Like, why? It's basically it. And it's kind of riddles going around the whole thing. So the main character is trying to piece together why she was left this money along with the brothers, and there's a lot of like relationships going on in there that's all twisted, but then it's just twisted in general. As you're trying to figure out, you're wondering the same question as everyone else, just why? Like, that is literally the biggest thing that plagues this book, but it has intrigue to it. There's not a ton of like actual action, but it's that quiet action that I think drives the story and made it super interesting. Like, I was so intrigued, edge of my seat the whole time, even though it was kind of like a quieter plot. It really hooked me from the beginning. Also, the estate itself that she's staying at is very different. Like, there's different secret passageways and all of that, so kind of like Truly Devious in a way, but it's just like there's not really a murder mystery going on. It's just, why did he leave his estate to this person who he never knew, and like, why did he not leave it to anyone else? So definitely a book that is going to bring up a lot of questions and make you think. Next up is Star Daughter by Shveta Thakrar. So this book matches my shirt perfectly, which brings me so much joy. This was not planned, but this was really interesting because of the world. So it is a fantasy story that it's actually an urban fantasy, which I didn't know going into it, but there's our world and the main character is actually half star. So she ends up going to, like, I don't know what it's actually called, I can't remember, but like the heavens where these stars live to enter this competition. So stars are actually muses, and it's a competition between those who have been inspired by a star who can create like the best art. So I found the whole thing really fascinating. I loved the blend of those two worlds. I loved that the story was very steeped in Hindu mythology, and it totally transported me to where these stars are, and the whole idea of the stars completely blew me away. And then this competition was really intriguing, and the idea that they were muses, like, it was just very well thought out. There was a lot going on, but I enjoyed it a lot overall. And I've never really read something that has been like such a celestial fantasy that brings me to an entirely different world like that, but is also a part of our world. So there's a lot of things that this fantasy did differently, and I think it did a great job of that. I will say, like, it was kind of, the writing wasn't my favorite at times, just because there was a lot going on, but overall, I think if you are looking for a new, unique fantasy, this is a great one to go to because it has a really interesting world to it and an interesting concept. Next up is another historical fiction, and this is one that I love so much. It is near and dear to my heart, and that is Lovely War by Julie Berry. So you've heard me talk about this book, I'm sure, a million times because I do talk about this book a lot. I love this book. I think it's fantastic, and I think it is super different than the other historical fictions that I've read. So one, this is a World War I historical fiction, which I really haven't read all that many of these, but it also follows two different love stories. You have these relationships that like are happening at such a tragic time, and they start right before the war, and it's just really hard to read. And you also have a Black main character who is part of one of the African American regiments in the war, and I had never really heard about those before, so that was really interesting as well, and he gets his own love story. But the main thing that sets this apart is the fact that it is these two love stories, but it is narrated by the Greek gods. So mainly you have Aphrodite is telling this love story, and it's kind of in like an argument and a trial with the other gods. Like, they all show up pretty much, and you just get to hear them having their opinions on this love story. You get like this frame tale that works so well. It seems like very jarring, like it wouldn't go together well, but it works tremendously well, and the writing is fantastic. Like, it's just a seamless blend of these two stories, of a kind of fantastical element to things, but with these beautiful love stories that are going to completely break your heart. So definitely highly recommend this one if you are looking for something a little bit different, because it definitely checks that box. I might as well talk about this book now because I'm sure you guys knew it was going to show up here, but Wolf by Ryan Graudin. You can't say, like, even if you don't like this book, you can't say it's not
unique, because the concept is so weird, doesn't seem like it should work, but it really does. Like, I love those books that just don't seem like they would work, but they excel at what they do. So this is an alternate history story where the Axis powers won World War II, and you're following the main character who she actually escaped from a camp, and she was experimented upon when she was in the camps, and that has left her with the ability for face shifting. So there's this motorcycle competition that is now held where the winner actually gets to get close to Hitler. So she ends up using the face shifting ability to look like a previous winner so she can compete in this motorcycle competition and get close enough to assassinate Hitler, as she is part of the resistance. So you see why I'm like, it seems like it wouldn't work, because there's like so much going on. You're like, what? Face shifting, motorcycle competition, like the Axis powers won the world war, like what is happening? But all of it works so seamlessly together, and it offers a really interesting commentary on things. It's obviously a very bleak and dark look at the world with the Axis powers having won, but you get to see it through the lens of someone who is part of the resistance, but also these characters who are on the other side of things. So it is just like such a risky story, but incredibly well done, a gritty, different historical fiction, and one that I will keep recommending because it completely blew me away. Next up is a book by that same author that I haven't really talked about as much, but Invictus by Graudin. So Graudin writes really different reads. I have read The Walled City by her as well, which is also very different, but this one is actually about time travel. So think Doctor Who, but in a book form, and that's pretty much what you get here. I feel like I haven't read all that many books about time travel because it's kind of hard to do, but I think that this is done really successfully. There's like the mechanics behind it I didn't find to be overwhelming. I found that they did pretty much make sense, but like I also don't think that deeply into things, so maybe that's why. But you're following a main character who really shouldn't exist. He was born outside of time, and he goes on this adventure through time, through all these different places. Like, it's kind of a book that you should just go into not knowing a lot, I think. Just know it's about time travel, a main character who kind of shouldn't exist, and it's timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly, all that stuff. So I haven't seen Doctor Who in forever, to be honest, but this definitely gave me all of those Doctor Who vibes. Next up is Dear Haiti, Love Alaine by Maika Moulite and Maritza Moulite. So this is another YA contemporary, and it is a story that is told in epistolary format. So the format is definitely something that makes it really different. It also has kind of a magical mystery element to it as well, but it is written by sisters, which I love. But you have like all sorts of different things. You have emails, letters, but the main character, she ends up getting in trouble at school. She gets suspended because there was this whole kind of incident, and in order, like, her punishment for that is she is actually sent to Haiti, which is where her family is from, and her mother is there, and she is trying to bond more with her mother. Her mother, she hasn't really gotten to have that much of a relationship with because she's a very prominent newscaster, and she just hasn't really had that much time. So she's getting to learn more about her history and her culture in Haiti, and this is following all of that and told in kind of like, it's like her school project almost. So it was really interesting putting the pieces together of this story. It had a very different take on things, and I liked the kind of magical thing mixed in. It wasn't my favorite part of it, but I did think it added a little bit of an interesting element. So it definitely wasn't the story that I was expecting, and having read their other book, one of the good ones, I kind of think that's what they're going for with their reads, is you think you're reading one thing and then it totally twists to be something different. Next is We Are Not Free by Traci Chee. I recommend this book to everyone, whether you are looking for a unique read or not. It is one that I think is so important. So you are following 14 Japanese American teenagers who have been taken from their homes and put into these incarceration camps. It is really a haunting read. It's very difficult, but the main thing that I think makes this different and sets it apart is its use of perspective. So I knew going into it there were a lot of different teenagers that you were going to be following. So I was expecting like a third person perspective, but you're getting the perspective of each one of these teenagers. Some of them you only see once, some of them you get a couple of times, but it's piecing together the whole story through all of their perspectives. You get
very unique personalities. You get a short time with each character, but it is enough time where you feel entirely connected to them, and you're seeing them go through this terrible experience, and it will absolutely break your heart. I loved how it used perspective to show like people were put against each other, and like it just absolutely blew me away. It's a fantastic read that I think everyone needs to try and prioritize at some point in their life, because wow, is it incredible. And the final book I want to talk about today is A Song Below Water by Bethany C. Morrow. So this is really unique because it reads like a contemporary, but there's these different creatures added into it. So for example, the main character, one of the main characters, is a mermaid, and there's like a lot of prejudice against mermaids. So it also kind of mirrors the Black Lives Matter movement, which is really interesting to have that in a fantastical setting. It makes you think about a lot of things. But you have gargoyles, you have all sorts of different creatures that are just like put into modern day, the world as you know it, and kind of just plopped there without like really explanation. So it's just like a part of the world and isn't really questioned. So I think the world was super interesting in this one because of that kind of seamless thing where they're blended into the world without like really a second thought, if that makes sense. This also is a story that focuses on sisterhood primarily, and I loved that. Like these best friends are so close that they're sisters, and it was lovely to see their relationship blossom through the whole book. I felt like that was more the focus than a romance. Okay, so those are all the unique reads that I wanted to share with you guys today. I definitely have plenty more that I can share with you guys in the future, but please comment down below with any books that you have read that you think are really unique, because I'm always looking for kind of different reads that are going to really blow me away. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in a new video soon. Bye!